As you've seen from my last video, predicting AFCON, just like any other major tournament, is nearly impossible. There are so many things that can mess you up when predicting games. A random red card, an underdog doing so well, all of these things will make it so hard for you to get the right outcome. With the knockout stage coming tomorrow, and me not having enough time to give you a full breakdown of each of these games, I will give you a quick 30-second snippet of each game, what to expect, and my predicted winner. Let's start with Tunisia versus Mali. This is a game that we've seen so many times throughout the history, and honestly, as a Tunisian fan, it's a game that I'm so bored of. To go along with how repetitive this game is, there is always a very boring outcome. 1-0, 1-1, 0-0. I don't want to watch this, and I'm not gonna lie, if you're not a fan of Tunisia or Mali, don't watch this game. Having watched 3 games from each of these teams, going into this game, I will give Tunisia the edge and predict them winning 1-0 to go into the quarterfinals. The next game is between Senegal and Sudan, and this is a horrible mismatch. Here, you have 2 teams with very different runs of form. Senegal are coming off an unbeaten streak in their group stage matches with 2 wins and 1 draw. Sudan, on the other hand, granted a very tough group, only managed 1 win in their group, and it was against Equatorial Guinea with an own goal. I'm not gonna lie, this has to be one-way traffic for Senegal, and I predict them going through with a predicted score of 2-0. However, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 3 or 4. The next game in the round of 16 is between Egypt and Benin. We look at the run of form again, and this is tough viewing for Benin fans. Egypt are also coming off of unbeaten group stage success, having beaten Zimbabwe and South Africa and drawn to Angola. However, in that game, they were playing a much weaker 11 to rest their players for the round of 16. Benin, on the other hand, lost 2 games and beat Botswana, but only beat them by 1 goal. You would have expected them to score a lot more, but they really showed that they cannot score that many goals in this tournament. That's why in this game, I predict that Egypt will go through with a 3-0 win over Benin, securing their place in the quarterfinals. The next game is a lot more of a closer matchup between Côte d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso. Côte d'Ivoire, again, unbeaten in the group of death with a win against Mozambique and Gabon and a draw against Cameroon. Burkina Faso, however, also had a very tough group, however, did manage to lose against Algeria with wins coming also against Equatorial Guinea and Sudan. I really like the Burkina Faso team, and this game is a very tough game to predict. However, I think that Côte d'Ivoire are just a bit better than Burkina Faso going forward, and that's why I have them winning 2-1. Going on to the next game between Cameroon and South Africa, this is very similar to the previous game where you have 2 teams that are very close alike. Again, with this one, you have Cameroon who are unbeaten in the group, whereas South Africa did manage a loss to Egypt. In my previous video, I spoke a bit about how South Africa's defense is looking a bit shaky relative to how good I thought they would be, and this is something that Cameroon can definitely exploit. In this game, I have Cameroon winning 2-1. Although it could be a very high scoring game, but the main thing is I believe that Cameroon will go through over the Bafana. Respect to Tanzania, but the next game might not be something that they're looking forward to. Morocco at home is not a team you want to face unless it's in the final, and a lot of these teams on this side of the bracket will have to face them a lot earlier. Tanzania, however, is not a team that I think can threaten Morocco's chances of going through to the quarterfinals, because this is a team that hasn't picked up a win at all this tournament. I think Tanzania will just be happy to be here, and given that kind of mentality, I think that Morocco will get an easy 3-1 victory over them. Moving on to what I believe is the tie of the round between Algeria and the DRC. Algeria looks very strong, but so does the DRC. They both have shown high scoring potential and both have a very strong defense. I've disrespected the DRC too much in my previous predictions. And looking at this now, you might think I'm disrespecting them again by saying they won't go through against Algeria. However, I think that Algeria and DRC are so close together in quality that it's going to go down to a penalty shootout. And if it does go down to a penalty shootout, with Algeria being a neighbor of Morocco, I think they'll have a lot more fans in the stadium, giving them that slight advantage over the DRC, sending them through to the quarterfinals. In the last game of the round of 16, we have Nigeria versus Mozambique. And this is a very tough one because I believe Mozambique have shown me so many levels in this tournament that I can't really predict them to lose badly. even though Nigeria have been so strong. Nigeria have a very strong attack, however their defense can be a bit shaky. And I think this is an area where Mozambique with Katomo can definitely take advantage of. However, I don't think it will be enough with Nigeria having a lot more attacking firepower than Mozambique. I see them winning 2-1 in a very tough game, but a very strong result for them going into the quarterfinals. Looking at my first game of my predicted quarterfinals, and this is the end of the road for my home country. Senegal are too strong for us at this moment, and I don't know if we can even put up a big fight against them, considering the fact that our manager has some really weird ideas when he plays against the big teams. I don't think we won't score in this game because we have the attacking potential and the ability to do that. However, I don't think that we can even take the lead at all, with it probably going to 2-0 before Tunisia peg one back and then try and score, similar to the Nigeria game where we were behind by a lot and tried to get back into the game. With that being said, I have Senegal winning 2-1 against Tunisia. I would love to say Tunisia goes through, but they just can't against a very well-drilled Senegalese team. Going into my second quarterfinals, I have Côte d'Ivoire versus Egypt, and this is a very tough one because I would love to say my Egyptian brothers go through again, but Côte d'Ivoire have just showed so many levels, especially coming through a very tough Group F. This is not to say that I don't believe Egypt have a chance, because I predicted that this game will go to a penalty shootout. In previous AFCONs, you've seen Egypt go to many penalty shootouts and win, but this AFCON, I feel like this may be a bit different. Their goalkeeper, Eshednawi, is so much older than he was in those previous AFCONs, and even when you watch him in the games against South Africa and even against Zimbabwe, he looks very shaky. I don't know what the score will be before penalty shootouts because it could be 1-1 or 2-2, with it being a very high scoring game with both teams having very strong attacks. However, I believe that Côte d'Ivoire will just have that edge over Egypt when it comes to the penalty shootout, just because of how shaky Eshednawi's been on those one-on-one opportunities. Moving into my third quarterfinals, and I don't want to say that Cameroon lose here, but against the hosts, it's going to be a very tall ask. I believe Cameroon can push Morocco all the way to the end. However, with home advantage, especially in AFCON, we know that things can get a bit dodgy, especially on the refereeing side. With that being said, I think it's going to be a very close game between these two teams. Cameroon showing me so many things in that group stage that are so positive. However, I think that Morocco might get some favors that will push them through into the semifinals with a score of 2-1. And in the last game, I have Algeria against Nigeria. And I believe that this is going to be a win for Algeria just because they are so much better than Tunisia that have faced them previously. Nigerian fans will believe that all North African teams play very similarly. However, Algeria is a lot more of an attacking team than Tunisia is, and that is one of the weaknesses that they can exploit out of Nigeria's defense. Nigeria have a very lackluster defense, and they've shown it previously in this tournament. And because of that, I think Algeria will be able to exploit this with it being a very fun, high-scoring game. I have my final score in this game being 3-2 for Algeria, with Algeria going through into the semifinals with a bit of that home advantage because of how close Morocco and Algeria is, and that being one of the big factors that push them through into the semifinals. Going into my first predicted semifinals, I have Senegal against Côte d'Ivoire. And with this, it's a very tough game because going into these later stages, all the teams are very close in quality. Between these two teams, I believe that this could be a very low scoring game because they both defend very well. I think the difference will come down to a set piece or something like that, because Senegal have shown that they are very good in the air. With that being said, I predict Senegal going through into the final 1-0. And in my last of the semi-final games, I have a massive derby between Algeria and Morocco. And the Moroccan fans will hate me for this, but I see Algeria just beating them. Algeria have shown, even coming from a very tough group, that they are very capable in this tournament. And with Petkovic as manager, I just think that he's a bit tactically better than Walid al-Regragui. The teams are very equal when it comes to quality. I'd even edge it a bit towards Morocco in that case. However, when it comes to tactical management, I believe that Algeria have the right man. Of course, with that being said, if Algeria do go on to beat Morocco in Morocco, expect riots. And with that being said, I believe the game will end 2-1 for Algeria, pushing them into the final against Senegal. And if the final is allowed to go on, I'm joking of course, but I think that the winner between Algeria and Senegal is going to be Senegal. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope the Algerians are not killing me in the comments. It's going to be a very fun knockout stage en route to the final, and I really hope that we can see some big matchups against some big teams. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thanks again for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and peace out.